Since I was about 14, I was working in the radio and television arm of the United States Senate, interviewing senators about everything from the State of the Union to the super colliders in their state. So I learned a little bit about production then, but I really wanted to be an actress. So I got my degree in theater. I toured with a national company. And when my husband moved to Chicago, I just spent about 15 years raising our 4 boys. And at some point, my husband said he really wanted me to go back and do what I love to do. So he bought me voiceover classes, and I then could do that from home. And that was sort of the beginning of my filmmaker journey in Chicago. And I started volunteering, producing on people's films. I became a field reporter for NBC, E! Entertainment, and Inside Edition. So when I went to Normandy in 2015 and I saw a story that needed to be told, I thought, well, I have to tell this story. How hard could it be? It was very hard. And it's a miracle that I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Wow.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Chen Drachman. I'm based in New York for the last 11 years. I'm originally from Israel. And I guess my background with filmmaking, in Israel you can actually pick majors in high school. I was a film and TV major in high school, specialty in scriptwriting, production, and editing. And then I've done my mandatory army service. It's a whole thing we have to do in Israel.
Yeah.
And then I moved to New York to study musical theater. And that was a decade ago, and ever since then, kind of like combining the acting and the filmmaking world, and the Book of Ruth, which is my short that's screened at the festival. I am the executive producer, writer, and one of the cast members. It's actually a 2020 selection, so we're very lucky that the festival invited us back this year, because we didn't get to screen anywhere live this past year, so this was our physical premiere, which was really exciting. It's a 14 minutes short that took 5 years to make, so it's not at all easy. Yeah, and our star is Tony and Emmy Award nominee Tova Feldshuh. I recommend you come and see tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. if you can.
I'm Mary Owen. My relationship to film and television is strictly by birth. My mother was the actress Donna Reed. And I'm not sure why I'm on this panel, but I'm glad to be here. I think I'll probably represent the old days in the studio system when, so it was really difficult for women to, have any kind of choice or control over, their roles and like that. But it's so nice to be here. I've never been to Dubuque. And I do spend quite a bit of time just honoring my mother's legacy through, I've got the TV show everywhere available, and I introduce a lot of her movies when they're shown in theaters, and then there's this whole relationship to World War II that I only came to find out about in 2003, that she was part of the pinup culture. So I have about 350 letters from GIs from World War II, and I'd love to get them published if any of you are publishers.
I'm your girl.
Yeah, okay, good.
I can help you with that.
And it's a great educational experience finding those letters, because when I grew up, we didn't study World War II in school, and that's the question, like, would I have grown up in Beverly, what would my life been like if the effects of the war had been different, the results. So it's been a great learning experience, and I talk to the letters, I talk to the guys on the holidays.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I started out being a chiropractor. I just thought, right out of high school, I was ambitious and I wanted to impress my dad, and so he loved his chiropractor, so I'll be a chiropractor. And I married my college sweetheart, and we had a couple kids, and we had to practice together, and then he wanted to date one of the patients, so it just didn't work out. And at that time I had small children, and my oldest I have 2 daughters, and my daughter was bit by an acting bug, and she had the opportunity to kind of go to LA here now and then to audition. And so when the divorce happened, I thought, what the heck, I'm gonna load up the babies and move on to Beverly. And I moved to LA in '98 with no job, no money, no family, no friends. And I had a 4-door car, and that was it. And I just hustled as a single mom and continued to write. And I raised my kids, and it wasn't until I was 50 that the timing was right that I could focus on really what my ambitions were. So I wrote a short film that premiered here in 2018. And when I was writing it, a gentleman that I highly respected told me I was going to direct it. I was like, no, I'm not going to direct it. And he was so inspiring to me, and I couldn't disagree with him because I just believe in him so much. I believed in myself, and I ended up finding, like, in addition to being like, my most favorite thing is being the mother to my daughters. But then if I was to pick the second thing, is like that directing really was like, I'm like, oh my gosh, where has this been in my life? I had no idea that I had such a capacity and desire to do this. And so I made my first short after I was 50, and now I have my second short that just played. That's why I was running it. It was a 2020 selection. Once again, so grateful to Dubuque once again, because my short that just was living in the virtual world, I got to see the little audience today. So that was pretty cool. And, you know, I'm adapting that into a feature, and anybody interested in like funding a feature, call me.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to all of you.
My story really came from an event. My son was in the 101st Airborne Division, and he had won Soldier of the Year and was going to another Soldier of the Year competition when they changed the requirements at the last minute, and because he didn't have a class, he was disqualified from the competition. And he was so angry about that because he lost the opportunity to win a car and money and all this other stuff. And I talked him through that crisis and said, you know, I'm a Christian, and I said to him, God loves you, and things happen for a reason in your life, and something better will come from this. Just trust me. I've walked with God long enough to know amazing things can happen out of rejection. And not long later, he called me and he said, Mom, as a consolation prize, the Army is sending me to France. And I said, we're going to France? And he's like, no. And I said, just watch me. And, you know, when your child is going to do something amazing, even though you don't know what it is, you want to be there to see it. He is my oldest son. And so by hook or crook, I found my way there. I didn't speak the language. I'd never driven in a foreign country. I just was completely lost. And that was comedic, getting from Paris all the way out to Normandy, never knowing how to drive or speak the language. But I did finally get there, and when I ended up in Normandy, he could not tell me where he was. He said, I'm in some field where they're doing a parachute drop, and I really just
Very
had
specific.
to, yeah, I mean, and there's fields everywhere in Normandy. If you've never been there, it's basically like rural Mississippi, and it's cow farms everywhere, so it was not easy to find him. And when I did find him, I was just blown away by what I saw. They had recreated the Normans, 1944 France, in a remarkable, authentic way. And I was there 10 minutes when I found him, and a woman came up and said, this jacket that was given to my mother in 1944 by an American GI. And I said, is your mother still alive? Yeah, she's right here, and my father is too. And I was filming at that moment when I asked them what they remembered about D-Day, and the rest was history.
Wow.
And so it was that moment that really charted the course for my life for the next 5 years. I tried to get other people to tell the story, my friends in the industry, and no one bit. So I thought, well, somebody's got to do this. It can't be that hard, like I said.
How much did you get from the material in the movie in that first initial visit? Or not at all?
No, I mean, I was only there for 4 days, and I did film on my iPhone a whole bunch of stuff, and it is in our film. But it took me another 2 years to do all the research, make the relationships, figure out how I was going to tell the story, and you know, it took a while for it to come together.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting journey for me because my film has done well. You know, we've won about 17 awards so far. You know, during a wonderful you know, festival run. We opened at the you know, Boston Film Festival. We won awards there, and so. But in the beginning, I reached out to every World War II person that is, and anyone, Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, you know. Gary Sinise, you name it, I reached out to them to try to get some support. And so far to date, I have had absolutely no responses from anyone. So, but I obviously have created a good product, and we got distribution before we ever did our film festival run. So I don't know what will come from that. But I had an interview with Real magazine, and a woman had watched my film, and she said, "This is unbelievable. I cannot believe you did this. You know, have you heard from anyone in the Hollywood World War II community?" And I said, "No, of course not. Absolutely not." She goes, "Well, you need to, and somebody needs to produce this into a narrative feature." So we'll see. I have no idea what the future holds in regards to that. I am sort of the lone voice in the World War II film genre. When I first started, I tried to find women directors that told World War II stories, and I couldn't find any except the woman who directed Hitler's propaganda films in the late 30s. And they may be out there, I just couldn't find them. And that really was an uphill battle for me, but not only was I a woman telling a World War II story, I was also 50 years old or over 50 years old when I was telling it, and I was a first-time filmmaker. So no one took me seriously. And it wasn't just men, it really was anyone, because what can I do? I never directed a short, I never wrote anything. And so I had lots of trouble when I went to the DOD or when I went to the 101st Airborne Division. None of them would support me in any way. And in fact, we were blackballed in Normandy by the 101st Airborne because I was a pushy woman. And so,
Pushy woman.
Women's are pushy.
Yeah.
and so all of the men at the 101st basically forbid any of the 101st soldiers, even though my son was there and I was honoring the 101st, from participating in any of the filming they were doing. I am from Mississippi. There's a patriarchal society there, and I only learned my own prejudice. Ken and I were talking about this when I went on my first shoot. I went to Mississippi to film a World War II veteran, and I needed a camera, a DP, and my friend there said, "You have three choices, 2 guys and a woman," and I said, "Give me the 2 guys." And I couldn't believe it. I didn't even recognize at the time what I'd said, but I was like, you know, she probably wouldn't be any good. I'm sure that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well, the 2, and I didn't, it exposed my own bias.
Yeah.
It exposed my own bias that I didn't even know was there. And so the 2 guys couldn't do it.
Wow.
And so I had the female DP.
Yeah.
And she was awesome. She was awesome. And it really taught me a lesson. About, you know, undervaluing or just not giving a chance to. And she was so good, I ended up having her, she's still running my social media department because she was getting a marketing degree at Ole Miss. And we took her to Normandy. So she helped us with social media there. And then she ended up being an assistant camera person as well as an assistant sound person. And she's been phenomenal to our project. So those are those experiences that I learned during that time. But other thing that was interesting is that there have been men who have come alongside me and believed in me. And they are people in the community that have stature. And then there are people just like this little kid over here, Sam King, who volunteered fresh out of film school because he believed in what I was doing. And so I've had a lot of gentlemen come alongside me and support me and speak for me and vouch for me. I had an incredible male editor and a composer and a sound designer. So I don't want to bash men because they really are, when they come alongside the women and support them, it's powerful. It became extremely important for me to bring, you know, women into my project of, you know, as many races as I could, and I was open to everyone, no matter what their sexual orientation is, their religion, or their sex. And I am on a podcast called the Holy Post Podcast, and I would put out calls for volunteers because I really had no money, and I would get these emails back saying, "I'm willing to volunteer," and most of them had no experience but were interested. And I pretty much brought them all on just because I wanted them to have the exposure to World War II. I took as many of them to Normandy as I could. And I've mentored younger women ever since I was a teenager. So I just feel like it's so important. I was telling someone last night at the American Legion who had taken this American Legion and turned it into this beautiful space. I asked her, who do you have interning with you? And she had no one. And I said, well, what happens when you retire or if you get sick? You need to find a younger woman who is interested in doing this and bring her in. So I would just say that to everyone, no matter where you are, whether you're a writer or a producer or a director or even just somebody that's interested in subject matter. Find someone else to mentor and to invest in who is younger than you are and pass on your time, your attention, your knowledge so that it doesn't get lost.
We'll try to pay our interns if you can.
If you can, absolutely. For me, it was Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep was the first actress that I thought was just, she blew my mind. And I learned about her through George Winston and her collaborating on The Velveteen Rabbit, which happened to be my favorite audiobook in 1983. And so yes, Meryl Streep was my first actress inspiration, and her courage and her determination to just do whatever she wanted to. But then I have to admit, it was Ken Burns and Aaron Sorkin actually with his writing, who really started me thinking about storytelling and how to tell the story. The master class on documentaries by Ken Burns. Only class I ever took in making a film, and I really made it barely by the introduction because it was all I needed to hear. He basically said, just do it. You can go to film school, but you don't really learn as much there than just picking up a camera or sitting in the edit suite or picking up a microphone. If you want to do it, just step outside and do it. Don't wait for the project to come to you. Make your own work, and then do not stop. Do not be deterred. Do not be discouraged. Just keep going.
And maybe like when it comes to doubts, like, you know, I feel like the hardest step is that first one. I wish I could do this, but I can't do this, so just do it anyway.
Just think, how hard could it be?
Pretty hard, but you know.
Don't even think about that.
But like,
don't even think about that.
Do it anyway.
Yeah, don't even think about how hard it can be. I mean, you know, you just decide to do it. When you are doing something, if you are rejected or if you fail, you know, or if you're not accepted for something, like when all of these people rejected me in the World War II community, it was not because I was the problem. It was because they did not have eyes to see my potential.
We're great, they just don't know it.
Thank you so much for watching, donating, and following along on our journey. Don't forget to like this video and leave us a comment below. And if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to our channel today.